Another departure today. I want to show you this. I've painted the Wandle several times in the early videos. This is an oil painting I did using a painting knife of the Wandle, or an impression of the Wandle. You can see how thick the paint is on it. I quite like this little painting. I've not done it in watercolour in a similar style. As you can see, it was a summer scene. There were buildings, or there are buildings in the background, but I just wanted to show a river scene and do it as quickly as I could and just create an overall impression. Very simple sky and very simply stated buildings. The paint, as you can see, is very, very thick. Now today I'm going to do a if I can find, going to do an acrylic over this failed, well, not quite failed watercolour. I did the watercolour some weeks ago before I started to do any of these YouTube videos, before I got into it, and it's a copy of a Ron Ranson river scene, very simple, and if you pull these sort of things off, they really look lovely. They look very spontaneous, and indeed they are. But there's everything in it that I like. There's a distance and a reflection, a mystery and an atmosphere about this type of painting, but I don't think this quite worked. But it was early practice, and what I've done, I've taken the watercolour and I've taped it to a board with masking tape. And when you carefully take the masking tape off, you've got almost a framed picture. So I'm going to just get some paint, some white paint. I'm using a Stay Wet palette. It's a Masterson palette, marketed by Chromacolour, an American company that markets wonderful acrylics and inks. And it's this sort of thing. It's the paint is on a membrane which allows water to leach through from a sponge, a soaked sponge underneath, but it doesn't let the paint go through to the sponge. It's a very good arrangement, and it keeps your paints nice and moist for weeks on end. The only problem is that if you don't use a little bit of ammonia dropped into the water that soaks the sponge underneath, it does tend towards mildew, so you have to be careful of that. I buy my white paint in great big pots like this. It's quite cheap. It's not artist quality, so it's not as saturated as it would be, but it's about 10 quid pounds, and I buy this at Claes Olsen in Croydon is my nearest one. The brushes I use are mostly cheap Chinese brushes for oil paintings and acrylic. They do wonderful things like this, a very cheap Chinese brush. You can stipple and all sorts. Loses its hairs like mad, but they don't cost very much. And I'll probably use this flat to do twiggy things, branches, trunks. But the problem is, with acrylic, if you don't clean the brush out or keep it wet, it will do horrible things to the brush. And these are fairly expensive. They're about £6, but they're made for acrylic, but we use them for watercolour. Right, okay. My palette is going to be the white, of course, which isn't a colour. It represents the white of watercolour paper, but we're going to obliterate that. I'm using light red, alizarin crimson, probably a bit of cadmium red, ultramarine blue, burnt umber, black. I probably won't use the black, it's just on the palette. Lemon yellow, or cadmium yellow light, and yellow ochre. So the first thing I'm going to do is to put in some sort of background sky over this as quickly as I can, using white ultramarine, just a mixture of these sorts of colours. You can see what I'm doing. Whatever you put on dries very quickly, and you can easily obliterate it. Dries in seconds, apart from soaking into the paper, but it will, being PVA glue based, acrylic PVA, it does form a waterproof membrane across the watercolour paper, so it completely seals it, and it's a lovely surface for working on. So take that into where we're going to put the autumny type trees, if I do autumn trees. A nice bit of light on the horizon. Well, that's not very light, but a bit of alizarin mixed in. Into the water. I can change this at any time. I'm just showing you again how to paint over watercolour paper when you've not had a great success with the actual watercolour painting. Just put in the reflection a little bit. What goes in the sky goes in the water. It's very exciting, this is. Was it a grey day? Well, because it's been slightly misty, we'll put a sort of a grey sky. But I use a bit of light red and a bit of ultramarine. It's always good to leave some of the brush strokes showing. Just adds a bit of interest, because we're always looking for brushwork, and which after all is a signature of you as an artist. We can work from other people's work. A lot of artists do. It's how you learn. But you develop your own style, and I maintain that even though I'm working from photographs a lot, if you copy what I've done, you'll do it in your own style. And after all, I don't own the copyright of the actual view. The view exists, unless of course I make it up, and it doesn't exist other than in my own imagination. Right, I'm going to get that nice and light now. I'm going to use a little bit of red. Some of these colours do stain. Oh, something stain the paper. I want that nice and light, but it will look lighter when I get the darks in. So the thing about painting on white surface is that what you try to do is, because everything you put on it by contrast looks dark, so you overcompensate and you make it all a bit lighter than you think. And then when you've done the picture, the whole thing is too light. So it's a good idea if you, I know I'm painting over an old painting, but if you're painting on a sheet of white paper, it's a good idea to give it a stain with some sort of raw sienna, burnt umber or something, just to kill the white, so that what you put on, because you're going on a mid-tone, lighter or darker will give a more or less a correct value. Worth experimenting with. I've been painting on white surfaces forever, and I can more or less judge it, but not always. I will have a bit of going to darken, lighten this background now. I'm using yellow ochre. I don't use raw sienna so much in this sort of opaque painting. You can, if you're painting on, say, hardboard, which I use a lot for oil and acrylic, you can use water to dilute this paint to do a very, very quick underpainting, or you can go in just as I am, straight with the neat paint. Just adding a bit of interest to that blue there. Right, let's put in a bit of background blue. I'm going to use ultramarine and a bit of alizarin to kill the blue, the brilliance of the blue, and just this gives the distance to the painting, this blue, and I'm painting it behind the warmer, nearer, misty cheek trees. I hope some of this will bleed through. We'll do the same on the other side, but try to make one side subordinate to the other. I'm not copying anything, I'm just working from memory because I've obliterated what was underneath. So I'll bring this one up higher, this one I'll keep low, but this one will have the larger trees in. Just cover it all up. Good fun. See, there's my palette. Absolute mess as usual. I've got loads of these membranes. They're not very expensive, and they do last a long time. I reckon this sheet will go for 3 to 4 weeks without the paint drying up. It's still pretty wet. Look, there's a membrane underneath it. It's a bit of furniture stuffing foam rubber. They do supply a particular type of sponge that expands with the water, but I don't use it because they're very prone to mildew, and you have to just change my brush, let that one soak out a bit. You have to treat the paper, the water with this ammonia, which tends to kill the mildew. It doesn't always. Right, I'm going to use this really hairy brush. It's long hairs. They're quite hard to get hold of now, these cheap Chinese brushes. I think people realise the value of them. When they've lost their hairs, they're very, very good for that sort of stippling. All right, I'm going to go in with some autumny colours now. So a bit of red, bit of light red, bit of yellow. One great demonstrator, if you're in an art club in England, you'll know, is Terry Harrison. He works with stay wet palettes in acrylic, and uses pieces of sponge, and he covers watercolour paper like you've never seen. He's a marvellous demonstrator. He used to come to the group that I belonged to for many years, Carshalton and Wallington Arts Group, and he'd do 3 acrylic demonstrations on paper in a couple of hours. Right, that's just the idea. I'll put a bit of green in there. I don't use prepare greens generally. Just show that there's something going on in there. I can blue this as well. Don't want to cover it all up. This is showing some nearer stuff, near foliage. Blue in there over the top of that, shows some shadowy sort of colours. when this dries off in a minute or so, I can easily put the sky holes back. Remember, you've got to leave spaces for birds to go through. Right, some darker autumny colours. I mixed blue, burnt sienna. Not sure if that technique's going to work, but I got some ochre in there. Yes, some yellow ochre. Show the leaves changing colour. Now we want some dark in there. Show the shadows. Now still some green in there. They haven't all gone to the autumn leaves, so the sun's shining through. I'm going to put some trunks back in this. Right, let's get some more dark in there using red and ultramarine, because there's a lot of shadow in this area, a lot of where the light doesn't go, and there's some banks either side. Right, let's put a bit of white in there just to get some bluey distance. I'm using the blues to create, or blue greys to create the distant stuff. It's coming up here. A bit more blue in there, a bit more white with the blue. So now this will open up, I hope, some of the foliage. Just show some light coming through the leaf canopy. I think Monet and Sisley, Pizarro, they probably used small brushes and just dabbed the paint on, and I'm just breaking the brushes up and using all the points. But whatever gives you the effect that you want, and you don't always know what you want until you actually do it. This painting, if it actually works, is evolving. It's just coming out of nothing. But I've used mixed techniques. I've used quite flat brushwork for the sky so far, and this different technique for the leaves. But since it is a leaf painting, right, I'm going to just put in some trunks, just to show. I'll probably use black and a bit of blue there, because there's not a lot of colour in these, because they're in the shadow of the gloom of all the foliage. But you can, if you wish, you can do what you like. You can change the colours. Then once you've got your trunks in, you can go over them and obliterate some of them, some of the bits of trunk and twigs and branches, because some of the leaves will come forward and some will go behind, and you've got to try to create that impression. And there are, there's blue there. you do get branches and trunks leaning over the water. You can carry on doing this until you're blue in the face, literally, and you don't really need to. A little goes a long way, but as in watercolour, I haven't given up the watercolours. I just want to have some fun myself in doing the type of stuff that I've been doing for years, or at least for the landscapes. I did Venice paintings for years for a gallery, but mostly based on an artist called Antoine Bouvard, and you just move it around a bit, change things, make it your own. But I haven't got many of those left. They were done for a gallery. Alright, let's do some over there. I haven't anywhere near finished this. This is just the bones of the landscape here. But I'm going to put some brighter stuff in front of that, whilst trying to preserve the original mystery of the painting. It's just, these aren't going to come up so high. Oops. My philosophy when you're doing opaque painting, as indeed watercolour painting, is to use the largest brush you can get away with. Don't fiddle and faff around with little sables. Impressionist painting, this is what we're trying to do in the videos, is just to create an illusion of what we're doing without labelling everything. Oh, this is a leaf, this is a trunk, this is a reflection. We're just leaving so much for the viewer to put in to your paintings. We can have some almost white ones in there, catching a bit of light. But light only shows if you've got dark around it. Don't overdo it, Dave. Don't get carried away. So just to keep you interested, if you just do watercolours exclusively, you can get very stale. Same with any painting. It's good to try different things. We're making paintings, and we're only limited by our own imagination. My imagination is not very good. I've just done this for 40 years, and I love painting. I don't do it for the money. I do it because it's what I do, and I hope you're the same. And if you do make money, that's lovely. That's good. It's good to earn some money, even just to pay for the materials. It's no good being stingy with art. I'm trying to clean my brush at the moment. I've got a big pot of water, big plastic. I think it held about 1 million roll mops. All right, okay. We're going to try to put something back in these now. So whatever you do, you can always cover up with the next layer of paint. So I'm going to I want quite a bright orangey colour now. Just to, that's not going to show there. The lovely thing about autumn colours is that it contrasts with the greens. If you want a green to look greener, put it near some red. So that's what we're going to do, and then we're going to put some greens back just to show in there. Conker trees. Just stroking over there, just. I want the blue to show through there. To give that distance, I need to block in the middle because it didn't go to infinity. There were trees behind that, but I can put those in a minute. All right, I'm going to have a bit of dark on there as well. Just no, not that dark. I'll have to cover that up. So you can do that. When it's dry, I don't want to smudge. I wanted to create a contrast from dark and brown, but I used black. I shouldn't have done, maybe. Right, I'm going to put some light greens. I'm using black and lemon yellow. But very much on the yellow side, and I need to squeeze out some more yellow. I'm using, this is French acrylic, fine acrylic. Primary yellow, it's a very light yellow, very good colour. Squeeze it out. Oops, I dropped my brush. Right. See, this is showing the bits that haven't changed colour. Let's get a bit more darker black in there. Right, mix some red in for the lovely autumn colours. I haven't forgotten the reflection, we'll have to do that last time. Just bung those in there. That canopy. Now I'm using the thicker paint to drag over that. There we go. I'm not painting too close to it. You can hold the brush like that so that you can touch with the belly of this brush here, same as the hake. Let's get some more. Now these over here really are more in shadow because this is the area that we're subordinating to the other. Let's get that over there. Right, I don't want to come any higher than that. Right, let's get another clean brush. I will put this blue in the background now, see what happens. Then I'll do some banks. So we've got blue, this one, so I've now created something behind, and I can put some darker blue in here just to show some foliage in that distance. Now bring some of that lighter bluey shadowy grey into some of this to mist that off a little bit, and I'll strengthen those up in there a bit. I can do the same on the other side. Blue, alizarin on the blue side, because that paint's dry now, and what I've got on the paper are lots of that stipple. They're all high spots now, and you can drag over them and it just hits and misses. Here we're getting the old mist back now. Blue, you create the blue to give that distance and that atmosphere. You're using the blue that's just hitting and missing. Right, now with the flat, my little flat, nice and clean, I'll just put some of these trunks back again. Not sure I like that colour. It's all drying instantly now. A grey tree, one of that registers, probably not. Silence is me concentrating. I'm sort of in overdrive now. Or on cruise control. Right. Have a go at some reflections now while I think about what else to do. So I'll have the blue coming through the middle, just a touch, same as the background colours. Got to put the bank in now, I forgot to do that. Right, bank colour coming in. This bank is going to go straight out there. This one's going to come down here. It's not a lake, it's a river. That's the River Wandle in southwest London, or South London. Goes from Croydon into the Thames via all sorts of waterways. Very lovely chalk stream, much abused in the 19th century, with 90 mills on it. It's only 16 miles long. I cycle it with friends and family. A lovely resource on our doorstep. And this part in Ravensbury Park, it's very wide but shallow, and there are lots of carp and fish in this lovely river. Right, put the bank in. I'll use a bit of burnt umber, I think, for that. A bit of burnt umber and just a mixture really. Come across there. There'll be some greens in it. Shadow. Just trying to lose the base of those trees. And I will have some bit of grass showing through, because lots of grass. This is around about last October. Well, Get some lights showing on the bank, just touched in. Just hitting and missing. Get some dark in there to show the edge of this bank, but only hit and miss. I don't want to put a label there saying this is a bank. I just dragging over. Lost and found. I'm overemphasising the green, almost yellow here. Well, in fact, it is. Right, let's. This bank is going to go out there. So we'll just show the different colours. Several colours on the brush at the same time. You want the bank to meet, sort of. Well, not quite. So that is as far as I'm going to take that bank. It goes across there, and that too will have some light on it, just catching. I'll flick some flourishes in there, just bits of light in there. Just when you put the lights back, it opens up the canopy a little bit. Put some air back into it. I've got to strengthen those trunks a little bit. Right, I quite like that. Quite like it. No, I'm using black in this. Just show. Black is a lovely colour. But you don't want to use it so it deadens. So just dragging that down over there. Same here. Right, now let's get back into this reflection. And we get some lighter horizon stuff in there. See how quickly you can change the whole atmosphere of the painting. I'm losing detail. I'll go back to my blue, get that in, bit of alizarin, blue, don't want it pink. Over there, missed it up a bit. Look, you can hear it scratching over the high spots, creating the lovely effects. Oops, a bit heavy that. Right, get some darker blues now. So darker blue is using the red, the cadmium red with the blue. So we darken that. See it coming through there? Bit of light there. Right, I'm going to put some trunks back on the other side now, because I've lost these a little bit, so There were many, many more trees in this area than I'm putting in. But remember that the trunks need to be thick at the base. Otherwise the tree really would fall over. So you must remember that. Right, just have fun with it. Still trying to preserve the distance, so a little bit more leaves covering up the trunks there, so put a bit of black, nice bit of green, dub it on. These are the dark autumn colours in there, just to make the green look more brilliant. And then we'll show that in here. Alright, now we'll touch in some reflections of these, yeah, and that will show where the bank's actually starting from. As you can see, I'm using a really big brush for these. Well, that shows something. Then we can do the same down here now to show those ones. And they'll be coming across here. Right, how is that? Well, I hope you get the idea. I'm going to sign it now. So I hope I've kept my elbow out of the paint. Then I'll take the masking tape off. And it'll give some idea of how quickly you can make a painting in solid opaque paint, covering up an old watercolour, which probably would, or arguably was better than what I've done. But you can, there's no limit to what you can do with opaque paint. You can work light to dark, dark to light. Oops, sorry, move the camera. I'll put it in a mount as well, then you can get the idea of this. There's a nice blue mount on that. You'd have to mount this, putting off you'd have to mount, if you ever frame something like this, you'd have to put it behind glass. So I'll just quickly go and get a mount. It's pretty dry, but it's an imaginary painting really. Bit low. Let's bring it up a bit because the signature was going off the frame. Get it straight. There we are. That's a finished sort of acrylic. It's done as a demonstration. It's not meant to be a portrait of anything, just to give you some sort of enthusiasm to paint, and I hope it's done its job. An exercise of painting reflections in a flowing river with distance to create an effect, an illusion of depth. Thanks for watching. Any comments, leave them on the page. Bye bye.